The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council chambers hummed with tension as Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the assembled representatives of 47 civilizations. Her dark eyes remained calm despite the cacophony of alien voices demanding her species' immediate expulsion from the galactic community. "The humans have overstepped their boundaries," hissed the serpentine delegate from Xerion Prime, his forked tongue flickering with indignation. "They dare to establish colonies in the neutral zones without permission." Elena's smile never wavered. It was a peculiar thing, that smile, soft, almost maternal, yet somehow unsettling to those who truly looked at it. The other species had learned to fear many things about humans: their unpredictability, their technological adaptability, their seemingly infinite capacity for both creation and destruction. But they had never understood the true meaning behind a human smile. "Honored delegates," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber despite its gentle tone, "I believe there has been a misunderstanding." The massive Galactic representative, standing nearly 12 feet tall, with chitinous armor gleaming under the artificial suns, slammed one of his forearms against his podium. "Silence, human. Your species speaks of peace, while your warships patrol our borders. Your colonies strip mine sacred worlds, while your diplomats offer treaties written in honey-sweet lies." A chorus of agreement erupted from the assembly. The crystalline Zephyrians chimed their approval in harmonic frequencies that made the air itself vibrate, while the gaseous nebulae entities pulsed with angry colors that painted the chamber walls in shifting hues of crimson and violet. Elena stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind her back, that same serene smile playing at her lips. She watched as the Galactic Council's security forces, hulking mechanical constructs, borrowed from the militaristic Corvan Empire, began to advance toward the human delegations section. "Perhaps," she said quietly, her words somehow cutting through the chaos, "you should reconsider." The Xerion delegate's laugh was like glass breaking. "Reconsider? Humans, your time of deception is over. The Council has voted. Your species is hereby banned from galactic society. Your colonies will be seized, your ships impounded, and your people returned to your primitive homeworld to contemplate your arrogance in isolation." The security constructs reached Elena's position. One of them, a towering mass of dark metal and glowing sensors, extended what might charitably be called an arm toward her shoulder. The chamber fell silent, waiting for the humans' inevitable surrender. Elena's smile widened. The construct's appendage stopped just short of touching her, as if hitting an invisible wall. Confusion rippled through the assembly as the machine's sensors began emitting increasingly frantic beeps. "You know," Elena said conversationally, "humans have always been excellent students of history. We've learned so much from other species over the centuries. The Corvan taught us about honor in battle. The Zephyrians showed us the beauty of harmony. The nebulae entities demonstrated the art of adaptation." She turned slowly, that beatific smile never leaving her face as she addressed each section of the council in turn. "But perhaps most importantly, we learned from the ancient archives of the Forgotten Ones, those mysterious beings who once ruled this galaxy before vanishing into legend. Do you know what we discovered in those ruins, honored delegates?" The construct attempting to apprehend her suddenly convulsed, its systems failing in cascading waves of sparks and dying lights. It collapsed with a thunderous crash that echoed through the now silent chamber. "We learned about evolution," Elena continued, her voice remaining perfectly pleasant. "About how species adapt not just physically, but socially, technologically even, spiritually." The temperature in the chamber began to drop. Frost formed on them, viewing panels as delegates shifted nervously in their seats. The Galactic representative's chitinous armor began to rattle, whether from cold or fear. None could say. "You see, we humans have indeed been busy these past few decades. While you debated our fate in these halls, we were exploring, learning, growing. We found the Forgotten One's greatest secret, the reason they vanished." Elena's eyes began to glow with a soft inner light that had nothing to do with human biology. They didn't vanish, honored delegates. They evolved. They transcended the limitations of physical form, of individual consciousness, of mortality itself. And in their ancient laboratories, they left behind the means for others to follow the same path. The assembled delegates watched in growing horror as more security constructs began to fail, their advanced systems unable to process what their sensors were detecting from the human ambassador. "The colonies you speak of weren't for mining or expansion," Elena said, her smile now radiant with something that was definitely no longer entirely human. "They were processing centers. Every human in those settlements volunteered to be part of the next step in our species' evolution. We are no longer bound by the petty limitations of flesh and blood." The Xerian delegate tried to speak, but found his voice caught in his throat as Elena turned her attention to him. The air around her shimmered with possibility. "You wished to strike a human diplomat," she said, her voice now carrying harmonics that human vocal cords could never produce. "But you cannot strike what has moved beyond your understanding of existence." The chamber's lights began to dim as Elena's presence seemed to expand beyond her physical form. Delegates fled their seats in panic, their various means of locomotion carrying them toward exits that suddenly seemed impossibly far away. "We thank you for this lesson in galactic politics," Elena said, her words echoing from everywhere and nowhere. "Consider it our graduation ceremony from the community of mortal species. We shall remember your kindness when we remake the stars themselves." As the last delegates evacuated the chamber in terror, Elena Vasquez, or what had once been Elena Vasquez, stood alone among the ruins of failed machinery and abandoned podiums. Her smile, now terrible in its perfection, reflected the light of distant suns that had begun to flicker in response to humanity's ascension. The Galactic Council had struck at a human diplomat, not knowing that death itself now wore a smile, and that smile belonged to the species they had so foolishly underestimated. In the void between stars, other evolved humans felt their sisters' amusement and began to prepare for the galaxy's next lesson in the consequences of threatening Earth's children.